Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X's and T podcast. I'm really excited. I get to bring back another worldwide guest that we're going to do our part 2 episode. But of course, before we get started, I just want to again thank every single person who has offered their support, who has come and shared their stories with me, who has shared the podcast. And I always say this, like, I have so much gratitude because I always wanted to share these stories. And I really hope that everybody who has come and shared, I hope you guys have a sense of peace afterwards, but know that you guys are supported. And we're all kind of becoming this big community of anti-Amway people. And it makes me so excited. So thank you guys so much. But also disclaimer, yes, when we talk about Worldwide Dream Builders, we talk about Amway. You know, it's hard for me to do these disclaimers because I have to say everything's alleged and these are all based on personal experiences and personal opinions. It's tough to say that because I feel like I have so much animosity towards these organizations, but for legal reasons, I have to say that. I'm not here to defame Amway and Worldwide because they are just two entities in the world. And if you are an adult and you want to join, hey, that's up to you. Not going to tell you not to. I would, however, suggest listening to these stories and maybe proceeding with caution. With that being said, you guys, I have Antonia back with me. If you guys don't remember, Antonia was 17 years old when she got introduced to this business. She was in high school. She was doing sports. She was in with her sister. Like, you guys, this was a wild time for her. And the last time we spoke, we only talked about her first year. So we have so much more to hear. Welcome back, Antonia. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, gosh, I just looking back at all of the things that we talked about last time, like, it's so crazy to think that that was just your first year. I mean, you're in high school. You talked about how you didn't have the greatest upbringing and your greatest home life. You're talking about how you're in it with your sister. And then there was this 22-year-old dude who was being a predator. And then, these people know that you're 17, but they get you into the business. So after your first year in experiencing all of these things, you have to, get rides from Crosslines home when you're in the process, and you finally graduate high school. What is your second year starting to look like at this point?
So my second year, once I graduated, I wanted a higher paying job. So I started working at In-N-Out. And then I worked there for like 2-3 months. And then I was like, okay, I need a better job. I need an 8 to 5. And luckily I was able to be connected with somebody in the church, because I did explore the Mormon church once again, and just trying to see if it was okay to just go back. And then somebody from there got me this job at this medical billing office. And that was basically my job for the next 3 years. And that second year, I was basically grinding, and I was still living at home. And so I was just working and building the business. I did have a car, like this really junkety car, a Mitsubishi. Yeah. I feel like it was like a drug car before or something, because it was just totally like ripped apart. Like, it was crazy. And then I think I was just working hard at the business. I would go during lunch or after work to build it. They basically said treat it like a baby, and so I did. So sometimes I would go before work to go and like talk to people. They say don't say prospect, but yeah, I was basically prospecting. And so I was just basically following the plan, and I was making conversations and cating her. And I think in those years, in the first like 2-3 years, I feel like she really wasn't like JC wasn't really like coaching me. Like, I later found this out, how she was coaching me wasn't the right way, because when I started coaching people towards the end with my team. And so she would always say, she would tweak some, but most of the time she would just be like, good job, on to the next, good job, on to the next. And that's like not, when I started coaching people and I look back, I was like, I don't think she was really coaching me. Like, I feel like they sabotaged my success in that way as well. Because had she been a little bit more in depth about her case, I think I would have gotten more traction. It doesn't matter now, because I'm glad I got only 7 people in it, and that was it. But that's what the second year was about. I was single for a really long time because I was building it so much. And I think they praise singleness a lot. Like, yeah, she's doing it as a single, build it as a single. Well, she's doing it as a single. And it was like, and it was weird because it was like, I felt like dating was kind of a bad thing because I was building it single. So I started to date when I was 19, and I think it was weird. I always had a gut feeling that it was weird that they wanted me to, the first date, do a meet and greet one.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
I always had a gut feeling that that's so weird. Like, you're interviewing people for a process, but yet you're interviewing a boyfriend. Like, like a potential boyfriend. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't go into dating in that way. I don't think, and like, I just, yeah. So when that, I think it was like that third year, I was 19. So 18, I was just busting my butt doing it. And then 19 is when I kind of started to want to date people, and like people wanted to date me. And I had a guy that I dated in that year try to warn me about it, and I just wasn't seeing it. Like, he was showing me exactly the numbers and stuff and how much money I was losing, and I wasn't listening to him. And
Yeah.
and I get that, right? Like, he was just trying to protect me, and I didn't see it back then because I was just blind. I was just
Yeah.
following blindly. And so I just, but he was not even a good guy at the end of the day. Anyways, I was like, no, like, we shouldn't talk. Because at the end of the day, like, someone doesn't support you in your ambitions. It doesn't have to be Amway, just your ambitions in general. Like, then they're not really for you, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's so I want to kind of go back really quick because I agree with you absolutely that, you know, maybe it's a good thing he didn't support Amway itself, but you're right. Like, you're passionate about this at this time. I'm sure you believe like this is the rest of your life. You are grinding, you are doing all the things. And this person doesn't support that. Like, I could totally see how you're like, nah, like you're not good, like it's fine. But when I'm looking at like this whole like treat your first date like a meet and greet one, I've heard that. That's wild to me. Like, could you imagine, like, imagine you're the person on the first date and they just start like talking to you about your goals and ambitions. And like, I know these people, like, how would you respond if someone, I mean, it like, if you hadn't been in the business and somebody did that to you on your first date, how would you have responded?
Honestly, like, I think it would be kind of weird, right? Like, I think you would feel
Yeah.
weird. Always put myself in somebody else's position. And I was like, I feel like that would just come off so awkward. Like, and it did. It does. Another thing too, like, they in that third year, that's when I started moving again. Like, my mom was kicking me out and stuff. So I would go in and out of my mom's house a lot. Like, move out, move back in, move out, move back in. That's how she is. And
Yeah.
so this was around the time where she had somebody in her downline, JC in her downline. She only sponsored her, and she was an older woman. And so I was paying her rent, and she was able to find me a room with her downline. And essentially it was cross finding, right? And there was boundaries and stuff that they were telling me before I got to move in with her, and I understood
Yeah.
that. But I rented out this room for with her, and she was like, I feel like, because I was grinding so hard, I really didn't have time to be at home. But I feel like she was still coming into my room and like looking at it, and all I had was like laundry all over the closet. And when you're grinding that hard, like, you really don't, care about what's clean at that moment, or cleaning your room
Yeah.
right after work, right? So you just care about building the business. And so she started criticizing me one night, and we got into like an altercation where we had to call JC. And And what happened was, uh, when she started, I don't criticize in arguments. I try not to do that because my mom did that a lot with me. So she
Yeah.
started criticizing me first, like right off the bat. And I feel like JC was all about like seniority, like and she, when I was like hating her and called her up, she was like, I want you to go back in there and apologize. And I'm like,
Yikes.
was not criticizing her. She criticized me first. I don't care if she's 50 years old. Like yeah, respect your elders, but only if your elders respect you, you know? So
Exactly. Like I hate that mentality so much that like,
thank you.
oh, because they're older than you gotta respect them. It's like, no, like we're not relatives. We're not like we don't know each other like that. And even if they were relatives, I think we had that
I was gonna
conversation
say
before,
that.
right?
Yeah, I was like, even if they were relatives, no one should be disrespecting you. Yeah.
Exactly, man. It's wild. But for your upline to it just it feels like your upline is treating you like a child. And I know that you're
Thank
very
you.
young,
Yeah.
but you were old enough to get into this business. But then when you're in the business and you're trying to be equals with these people, all of a sudden, like now you have to bow down to somebody older than you, despite them being like incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah. It's like I paid my own bills at the time. I paid my own car insurance. I paid my own phone. I paid my rent. Like that's not something a child does or a 19-year-old does. I was building that, and I thought, and this is the part that got to me, is that I was loyal to them at that point for 2 years. So they already knew my character. I was being the perfect downline, right? Never missing a meeting, doing core every single day. I mean, every single day. And I did not miss a day, and I did not miss a function. And in those 2 years, and so for her to have sponsored this woman and like known her for a few months and knowing my character and she's known me, how can she not have my back? Um,
Yeah,
and I didn't,
exactly.
and the way we grew up, right? We don't really listen to our feelings right away. So,
True
so
that.
I was like, I just felt like my body, and it's weird, but your body does know before you do. So I found myself when we did these huddles or whatever after a function, like not wanting to hug her, not wanting to talk to her. And I'm like, why don't I want to do this? Why don't I want to be close to her? Like, what happened? And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, she didn't have my back. That's why.
Yeah.
uh,
Exactly, which is triggering, especially when you have a parent who will quite literally throw you under the bus, right? It's like you have this person that you're expecting to be better than your own family, right? They're promising you all these things. And then they not only do they not have your back, but they make you go grovel to this other person. Like I just
oh
can't get
yeah. Hmm.
I can't get down with that. Like that's weird.
Yeah, I don't like that. Like I'm sorry, but I don't you sh I'm not gonna be a bigger person. Like why I why should I be if she was disrespecting me first, you know? And so like the good downline, I apologized and just moved out. Um and then so that was another red flag basically. Was that right there. And of course I continued to be loyal in my third and fourth year. Um, it was a grind. Like when they say going ego, it takes all of you. It does, and I did go ego. But the thing is, with my downline, you know how they say you are what you attract.
Yes.
I was attracting a lot of people in the same position as me, and
Yeah.
you know, a car but no home, or no car but a stable place to live. Like they always had something missing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't like that. I think that was that was another thing that why I quit, was because I kept attracting these people, and I'm like, no, I don't want to put someone in the same position as me, because it took a lot for me to go ego my position, and I don't want someone to go
Yeah.
same thing. Hmm.
You're right. And gosh, you know what's interesting is every time I talk to somebody who did build an eagle ship, right? Because I remember being in the business, be like, I want to go eagle so bad. Like I feel like I lost. And Brie said this too. And when I had done an episode with her, she was in
Oh yeah, she was like double ego, right? She
she had almost gone double eagle. Yeah, she took a big business when she left. So like shout out to Brie. But she had said that it was not as great as she had anticipated it to be. And I always remember, man, like that's gonna be the end all be all. This is gonna be it. Once I go eagle, like it's all smooth sailing from here. No, like it really upset me too to find out because Brie also she sent me a a breakdown because I released the audio, right, where I'm going through what the club owner is saying, and on the audio, she's like, I was an eagle and I did not make that much money. He says that eagles and above are his eagles are making $1,000. You'll make $500 as an eagle if you suck. She's like, I didn't even make anything close to that. So when you were an eagle, as far as kind of just really quick the financial side, were you making this $1,000 that they said that you were going to make at Eagle?
Not 1,000, but I was getting like $400 or $500 checks. Like when I
Yeah.
left the business, I had savings. I had $6,000 left in my savings from the
Oh,
business account. Yeah.
that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, that's amazing. But to hear that you only made $400, that
Yeah.
makes me
But
mad. 'Cause I'm like,
like compared to the products that you buy, right? And
yeah,
that wholesale retail and that other money that disappears. No, I spent a lot of money. Like,
yeah, oh
you
yeah.
know what
Like
I
that's
mean? Like, yeah.
crazy. And you're right. This the where does the secret money, where does that go? And it's like it's wild. But as far as like kind of the emotions and everything that you felt, like what was it like? Okay, so how long had you been in the business when you went Eagle? And what was that really like for you? Was it kind of what you expected? What kinds of new things were you seeing?
I think it was like year 4 that I went Eagle. You know, you got to go down with the other Eagles, and there was a lot of people because I had a lot of cates sent out through the whole organization because how I worded things and that they liked it and they sent it out. And a lot of people say thank me for moving on for all because they knew all that I went through, you know, to get to that point. And like um you know, obviously you get more recognition from other leaders and they look at you different. And I was very real. Like when people will come up to me to ask me questions, I was very real with them. You know what I mean? I wasn't fake. And like um there was also ego rooms that I got to go to and it was nice, you know, and like when you don't have like that strong like upline mentorship, like knowing that they're doing something wrong, it's like you don't really like for me, I didn't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Like they weren't because even like we'll talk more about the ending of me building the business, but you know, there was I was having like this panic attack and like you know we always hear from other leaders like oh call us like I called her in the middle of the night and I answered and there was one time where I really needed her to answer the phone and she was like can we schedule it and I'm like that's not a friend, you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's not. No. And that's one thing that also has kind of been a really common denominator is they're going to be your best friends, right? Friends, right? When we think of friends, I think of somebody I can call up and be like, hey, so we're free. Are you free this night? Like, let's go hang out. Like, let's do something, right? But with worldwide, it always has to be business specific and you always have to can schedule it. You're right. Like, that's not a friend. It's weird. And
Mhm.
that just I feel like makes it even more superficial looking back than
Mhm.
even that I realized in the moment when you were in those moments when you were an eagle and you were getting around the association and were you ever criticized for being as honest as you were? Because I know sometimes we if we say the wrong things our offline can get upset.
I think they did one time about my downline, like they shouldn't be knowing my personal life. But I always believe that maybe like with your downline, maybe they should see your like it's just weird. It's like, you know, it's okay for them to know for me personally what's going on. You know what I mean? So it was very hard for me to keep stuff away from them, knowing what was going on. And she would always keep me like, hey, you know, that was passing the negative down, like try not to keep it to yourself. But or like that double standard
Right.
we talked about in other podcasts where don't don't pass negative down line, but
Yes.
bring it up line. But oh wait, we're not your therapist.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it's just so wild the way that they do this. Like you're right. You're absolutely right because it's linear. Their conversations, your negative only goes up or whatever. But I really like the way that you looked at things because I think that your angle and what I feel probably made you really successful was the fact that you were real. You weren't doing this the superficial BS way that they're trying to teach you to do it. Like you can only take fake happiness so far. And for you, it sounds like you were so relatable to people and being like, no, like I went through some shit. And if I can do it, you can do it kind of a thing.
Yeah. And like also too, my meet and greets, some of them were like 2 hours because I actually and they only wanted it to be an hour, right? But
Yeah,
some of them
yeah,
had 2 hours because I actually took the time to get to know them and for them to get to know me. And like
yeah,
I think that's what really helped as well, like take me that far was because I actually really was very like real. Like I cared about these people. I cared about their success. I cared about making an impact. I really cared about that, you know? I think that's
yeah.
what took me that far. And so and then my meetings were sometimes 2 hours. Yeah. Cause
Wow.
I genuinely cared about people. I like, and it did impact me in positive ways, the business, right? And that's why I was able to do that with people because I wanted them to like, get what I got. And don't get me wrong, like if it wasn't for those books, I wouldn't have healed the way that I healed because some of the books were healing for me, like the
Yeah,
book
definitely.
Founder, that was huge for me, that book. But at the end of towards the end, there was a lot of things that I just woke up basically.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the hard part too, is kind of now it's hard sometimes. I feel like when we're out now, there's so much that you look back on and you're like, man, like I can't believe so much of this happened. But when you're there in the moment, and that's what I really want people to understand is like these people, like they're our heroes. Like we didn't just overnight decide like and some people do, don't get me wrong. Some people overnight are just like, I hate these people or I didn't really want to or whatever, but there's definitely a slow grooming process. And then when you finally wake up, you see it. But when I kind of want to go back because I'm really fascinated by this whole going eagle thing because I never got to do it. So I didn't have like this association differences and stuff. But when you were there and you were down on the floor or you were in these eagle rooms, like, did you, because one thing that Brie had said was she had heard some like locker room type talk where like upline were like dogging on their downline and stuff. Did you ever hear anything like that? Or did you hear anything that maybe us baseline people weren't hearing?
No, nothing like negative like that with the guy that talks really fast organization. They in the Eagle Room, they really it was kind of the same way as like the second look meetings. Like they were just in that, like, what do you call it? Um, when they're all sitting in a row. What do you call that? Like I totally
For
forgot
which
what they.
part?
It's like a panel. Boom. They had
Oh,
panel.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes, sorry. I totally
No,
forgot the
you're
word.
good.
But they did panels like that in the Eagle Room. So the all the wives talk, the double Eagle rubies, the husbands, then also like the diamonds men and then diamond women. Um,
Yeah.
and then they really talked about like, you guys are eagles, you guys are now examples, like the seriousness of that and like the seriousness of going double and like, but yeah, that's really that's what I remember. But nothing
Yeah.
negative like that what Brie experienced.
That's good. I like to hear that though. I really do. And it's it's nice to see that there can still be some level of positivity. I mean, it's toxic positivity, but it's still positivity. Because when I heard her kind of express all of the things that she had experienced, I was like, I bet anything my Eagles were very similar to that concept. That's just kind of the vibe that I got from them. But I love to hear that. That's really positive. So now that you have built your Eagleship and you are, continuing through the business, like what things changed for you when you had gotten to this level? Like I know that you kind of talked about how this was year 4, and I know we're probably bouncing back and forth, which is totally fine. But like did anything like really substantial happen after that point that really started you to kind of see things for what they were?
Yeah, so I they started coaching this couple. So they started handing off coaching to me, right? To the four, think for just the 5 people, because there was only one couple that I sponsored. And there was a situation where this couple made someone aware. They brought them to the process. JC and her husband, they were modeling this meeting for them. And Mark recognized that he took them through this, like he made them aware before. And so at the end of the process, because this couple had made them aware years later after they made them aware, and they're now modeling this meeting for them, I don't know if that makes sense, but at the end of that process, Mark and JC were like, hey, you either get sponsored by us or you get sponsored by them.
Oh my gosh.
And so they basically stole a leg from my downline.
No
And
way. I mean,
mhm,
oh my gosh. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but I can't get over that. Like
mhm,
that totally goes against what they preach. Like totally against like if you find this person, they're yours kind of a thing. It's just like saying that sounds messed up, but that's how it is, right? And for them to see that you had brought upon like or not you specifically, but like your downline, like that's still your business, right? Like
mhm.
they still stole from this, from your downline's business, from your business, because they couldn't be okay with the fact that someone else did it better than them.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
Or they were about to get a leg. Yeah, like they were so about with and like um and I brought it to her attention one time during like a I think it was a second look. And I went up to her and I was like, "Hey, I just want to bring this to your attention about this situation." And this is how she is sometimes and she would be like, "We already talked about it, so they'll get over it." And I'm like,
Wow.
"That's messed up." Like
Yeah.
because they're feeling a certain way and their feelings are actually pretty valid. So for you to just dismiss it is like it's effed up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That there's a lot of shady stuff happening
Yeah.
really throughout the entirety of your time in the business, but this particular event is extra fucked up because they're like they were selfish. Like this person still would have been in their depth, but instead of really wanting to coach their downline to have a good quality business, they quite literally sabotaged all of you guys. Like you were
Yeah.
sabotaged. Like that's ridiculous. I am just in shock
Yeah.
that this is happening. And so this happens. And what are some other really large toxic red flags that you kind of looking back noticed that were just kind of continuing to make this process of staying in the business harder for you?
It was so COVID really helped me like realize a lot because it got to the point where um something woke I think it was after a relationship that it woke me up to see the reality of my life. And it really I had to take a step back. I'm like, what is it that I want now? Like I'm 22 years old and I looked at my the past year and a half or two and I counted how many times I moved to try to keep this business together. And at that time, I had moved 13 times in the last year or two of that business, building the business.
Wow.
So that was one of the reality checks. And second was when they always say they value family, and my sister was not gonna be able to, keep a job during COVID, and we were gonna be, she wasn't gonna have a place to live, and we weren't living with our parents at this time at all. So we were gonna have to rent a room and share a room. And so I knew that I wanted to keep some space for my sister, because I know we didn't have a good dynamic, but at the end of the day, she was still my sister and I wanted to help her. So for them to like say like, I thought you were going to stop talking to her and give her some space. I'm like, it doesn't matter though. She's still my sister. Um,
Yeah, of
so,
course.
and also like attracting the same people with the same position. And because I was still taking, and like, just towards the very end, like I just was like, and then just looking at the reality of my life and the reality of how much what they've done to me in the last 4 or 5 years. That's what made me make the decision like, all right, I'm leaving. And I didn't ghost them. I warned them and I stayed for like 2 more months, I think. And but I wrote them a letter, and I think I still have a picture of the letter. And like I wrote them a letter. Basically, in the letter, it was saying like, "Hey, like I'm not some kid. I'm an adult. I pay my own bills, and you guys have treated me this way." Um and I didn't ghost them. I just wrote the letter, dropped it off, and then I actually started like calling every single one of my legs, and I actually went to every single one of my legs and told them that I was quitting.
No
Um,
way.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Wow.
just respectfully, and
Yeah.
um some of them have stayed and I think some of them are still building it. And that's okay. And they were trying to stop me, but some of them were even saying like, oh, well, this is the only thing I got going for me. Like, this is my only plan to like retirement, right? So they
Yeah.
stayed. And I totally respected their decision. There was also this one leg I still keep in contact. Her name's Danielle, and we still talk today. She's a labor delivery nurse, and and that was it was she's a lot of them were staying for me. They weren't staying for them, for my upline,
Yeah.
because they knew my heart.
Wow.
So when I quit, I felt like it gave her the okay to be like, okay, I can quit too, which was cool, because I'm like, okay, I like, please don't do this, like, I think that's another thing that I want to let people know too. It's like, you don't owe these people anything. Like, I heard a lot like,
Yeah.
well, they saved my marriage, or we wouldn't be together if it wasn't for them, or I wouldn't been healed because of the books. I'm like, but at the end of the day, how life is, you don't owe anyone anything, and no one
Yeah.
owes you anything either. Um, that's that's yeah. It's just basically waking up, looking at the reality of my life and what I wanted and how I felt, and like basically looking back at all the red flags. And I just was like, and also to me, the whole scheduling thing at the end, when I was like having a panic attack because I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. I just,
Yeah.
that was like it was a done deal, because I was like, that's not a true friend.
Right. Right. And yeah. Wow. I mean, the way that you left is pretty dope, in my opinion. I wish I would have contacted my downline, but I was scared. Like, at that point, I think I was just like, okay, I need to focus on me and my kids. And like, I think I have since spoken to at least half of the downline that I had ever like sponsored into business. But the rest of them, like, I would love to contact them and be like, bro, I'm so sorry. And I hope one day they hear this. Hey, I'm so sorry, y'all. But like, wow, the letter too. That is genius. Cause like nobody, I wouldn't want to face them. I'd be like, nah, like I don't want to see you face to face. I already hate you this much. So, and I'm not even like at that point when I left, I didn't hate them like I do now. But there's so much that led you to this decision. And I think one thing too that you had mentioned that we didn't bring up in the other episode that was a pretty big deal was the fact that they had a function close
Yeah,
to the time and near the hotel where this Las Vegas shooting was. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
yeah. So I talked to Michael and Michelle about this, and they confirmed. But it was basically October 1st. There was a shooter at the Mandalay Bay shooting at this country music concert that was going on. That was a big deal. But it was the very next, I think it happened on a Sunday. It was the very next day. She confirmed in her calendar. It was the next day that we had a second look. A lot of people were asking if we should still go or not go. But the guy that talks really fast sent a whole Kate out to everybody saying it's still gonna go on. And
Wow.
a lot of people were like, it's messed up that that we have to come knowing what had happened. And like they were saying, oh, there's high security. But at the same time, even though nobody in the organization was like affected, and I don't know if that's the right word, but there was people's families who were, though. They knew a friend that went to it, or you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
um so it wasn't like a good time to like go ahead and just say, hey, show up the next day after that. That's drastic.
Yeah. That's scary. And
Mm.
to be so selfish, that's wild to me. People in the whole community were shaken up about this. I mean, the entire country was shaken up by this. Like so like country fans were all like so shook about this because it's like that could have been a concert I would have been at. Like that's absolutely a show I would have totally gone to if if the stars aligned or whatever. And then you have the entire community of people who were locally. And then you have the people who were there. Like, there's just so many layers to the trauma that this caused people. And worldwide, instead of being like, you know what, let's be respectful, let's not schedule this right now. They should have put this off for at least 2, 3 weeks, if not a month. Like, let the community grieve. But instead, they're like, no, we're actually still gonna have this fucking meeting. Like, what the fuck? That's so crazy. I am so sorry that that happened. And
There was
wow.
something
So
else, I don't know if we mentioned it in the first one, but it was you know how they did a lot of delayed gratification in the business?
oh
Well,
yeah.
and you know, with all due respect, like I want to mention this because this is something as well, an example of some when it comes to a time where they should cancel something is when my upline was, you know, they were expecting and
Yeah. We're gonna
mm,
talk about this.
yeah, so I think it was year 3 or 4. It was right before my team's board plan, and I had saw her before the board plan was beginning, but she was having complications and she was going to go to the hospital that night, and I had saw her before the board plan, and so she left. And I just believe that if you know there's a board plan, and but if there's something a really personal life thing going on, like something like that, especially that she's expecting and she's having complications, there should be no meeting at all. I wish I could have just said to Mark, like, hey, your wife needs you, and like just go, and don't even worry about it. But I think even soon after that, when they lost the baby, they showed up to a second look meeting. Don't know how far along it was, but even the guy that talks really fast saying like even though we would have understand that they wouldn't have been here, they're still here. And like I just believe that they shouldn't have showed up. I think they should have just taken the time to grieve, you know? Um
Yeah.
and there was things too, like I didn't cancel meetings when it was my great grandma who had passed and I missed her funeral
Wow.
because I was like, oh, I have meetings the next day. I don't think I can cancel them. I think they'll just, you know, I can't go. And that was actually the first time like my mom's El Salvadorian side of the family, all of them were there. And I'm probably never
Yeah.
gonna ever get that chance again, but I didn't get to meet them.
Yeah.
So I think there's just
Wow.
moments in time in our personal lives that call for an okay to just reschedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely there are. And that's something that I now realize myself. And what's funny is every time I schedule to meet with somebody on the podcast, it always feels like a meet and greet one, except for I'm not trying to bring y'all an Amway, right? But I am so
Yeah.
grateful for everybody who's ever understanding if we need to reschedule because like, everybody's got families. Some people have to reschedule or I need to reschedule. Like it's okay to do that. And the fact like when I was in Worldwide and like just like you said, like why was it ever a thing? Why was it ever never okay to reschedule? I mean, even with I know it's probably not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like weather was one in our neck of
Oh
the
yeah.
woods that they never scheduled for. And I don't know how much snow Vegas gets, but we definitely did not get it all the time in Portland, but we did one winter and they would still encourage people to go. And I
I would
think
say
I
that.
went to one. It was snowy as all hell. And thankfully I had experience driving in the snow, but they still held a meeting. They should have canceled and been like, do not leave your house. Like it's not worth it. Or
Yeah.
the fires too from 20 I think it was 2017, the Eagle Creek fires. There was a lot of our business, not like mine specific, but like my Crossline who are downline for my platinums and my diamonds, like they're all in Hood River, which Hood River, you need to take the gorge to get down to either Vancouver or Portland, whichever area they have the businesses at. They closed down the gorge. Okay. A lot of people were still encouraged to go, and they would take an even longer route just to get to these fucking meetings. And they would go that way. Like it would be 2 hours one way to go to these meetings.
I would
That
hear that.
fucked up.
I would hear stories a lot about that, like the Canadians, like that
Yes. Yep.
organization. Yeah, like I would hear that it is messed up, and I feel like they literally, their mindset is like, we want you to die for this, basically, you know.
Yes.
And it's like
Yeah.
I don't even know, like I haven't heard yet of anything or anyone, you know. I've heard of accidents happening, but I never heard of like an actual death happening. So, but maybe whoever comes around, and continue to record more
We
testimonies, like
have
maybe
one.
you do.
We do.
That's messed up.
Unfortunately, yeah. It was her upline platinum had passed away and was in the parent organization to the guy who talks really fast. And so she was in that diamond ship, but she was in one of their diamonds who was downline from them. So it was like the same organization that Brie was in. So somebody did pass away. She passed away from a car accident, and they said that she had passed away building the business, and it was really sad. So they had one of the things that she had said was that a lot of her upline, I think one person in her upline, it was not the diamonds. She was on like a texting basis with the guy who talks really fast, his parents, who are like OGs in the business, right? And her diamond and their downline diamonds who were also her upline diamonds, she was in a texting basis with these people. She was a sapphire. I think, yeah, she was either a ruby or a sapphire when she passed away. She spent her fucking life in this business, and none of them, except for one person in her upline, and it wasn't those diamonds, who went to her funeral. And her family had to create a GoFundMe for her. Like, she's a sapphire in this business. And the question was posed, it's like, why did they have to create this GoFundMe if she was making all this money in Amway and in Worldwide? And that was really devastating to hear. They even created this like hashtag do it for her name. And they really exploited her death. Like, hearing that was a true travesty. It was so
Yeah.
devastating to hear that she
Honestly,
poured
that
her
breaks.
heart in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if she was told, like, hey, your upline's not going to be going to your funeral, you still want to pour your life into this. I don't think anybody would say yes to that.
Yeah. And knowing that like the Diamonds knew who she was and like they have all this money, why didn't they pay for her funeral? That's
Exactly.
oh man, that's so messed up. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. Like that was my first time hearing that. It's very inhumane. That's what I'm trying to say too. Like it's very inhumane about all of it. It's not it's just not okay. It's not real. It's not like empathetic towards like situations like we have warnings on our phones, right? In Las Vegas about flooding. It's like, it don't go anywhere. You know what I mean? And we have to listen to that. So it's like why don't they do that there? Why don't they do that in the organization? You know?
Yeah, it's truly devastating to see the things that people will go through
Mm-hmm.
in this business.
After I quit, there was a lot of stories that I started hearing. Like I just started hearing like stories about this person quit. Even some big legs quit. And I'm sure Michael and Michelle will share that too, because they know they're the ones that I found out even more stuff. And I was like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I after I quit too, I had $6,000 in my account, so I ended up putting a down payment on my car that I still have. So I do have a car payment. Ooh, they
Yeah,
always
yeah.
like,
The
they
evil car payment.
yeah. But I used half of that to put that down payment. I still have the car. And then like after I quit, I had messaged my friend Bree and I was like, "Hey girl, like I quit." And she's like, "Dude, so did we." And I'm not sure if you'll do a podcast with her, but she was also like influenced to marry young and in the business and quickly as well. And I was actually
Yeah.
the one that helped her with her divorce. Me and her, like literally we were like go shopping at Costco, and like she would vent to me about the relationship, and I just would like, look, Brie, like, if I thought this person was your soulmate, like I would totally be like go in there and work it out. But I know he's
Yeah.
not. So I need you to understand, like I need you like to leave this guy. So it took her a while to leave him, but eventually she did, and we ended up becoming roommates in our apartment. Um,
Yeah.
we both would like we do have a lot of like PTSD because of this business, and we would come home sometimes and like share what we felt, like oh my gosh, like money and like the mindset and like just like it was such a relief having her in my life, and it still is. Like she's still in my life, and she's actually a singer now, and I'm so glad she's following
Yeah.
what she actually wants. And like it was just cool to have someone to relate to. And that's why I'm glad you're doing this too. Like, oh my God, because I thought at the time it was just me and her, so I wouldn't talk to anybody else who had similar stories, you know? So me, it's like a
Yeah.
language still, like, you have to go through it in order to understand. So like me and her would literally be just venting each other all the time. We still do. Like I still bring it up to her and we still
Yeah.
vent about it. So
Wow. That's so like that's so sad that like you and all of these people that just have gone through so much and it makes me happy that everybody is like connecting as a community. I love to hear that that like groups of people are reconnecting with their cross line or their down line or like even upline. I've heard that one time. But it's really great that we can be here to be supportive now as a community versus when we were worldwide, we weren't allowed to do that. And that support is amazing. And I am so grateful that you had that experience. And now that you're out of the business, I know that you had so much happen after you left.
mhm.
Like what was life like kind of in the days, months, year following you leaving the business?
It was so hard to adjust to just having this new life without the business. I started taking naps. Um
Yeah.
like my sister was the one that taught me. She was like, dude, like take a nap. And man, like when you don't realize you're going that hard, like your body knows. And so I was like sleeping it. Like I would, as soon as I come home after work, I would just sleep. Um and we were still struggling to move. So we had moved, me and my sister moved into a room. We got out and moved with this lady who was able to have us be with her for 6 months. That didn't turn out well. So then we moved again. So still a lot of moving around. Like I know you had trouble
Yeah.
keeping a job after. Well, I still had trouble like landing a place to live.
I hear that.
Uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's still kind of a struggle. Just mindset stuff, really, like learning how to. This word might be triggering, but like, and it's true and it's beneficial, but it's rewiring my brain. Because they have this book
Yeah.
in the
Oh
book.
yeah.
Yeah, and but literally, like, they I just rewiring, like, okay, like I don't have to continuously grind. I don't have to um always be productive. I can watch TV, I can watch a movie, I can binge watch a show and not feel guilty about it. Um
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah. Like
yeah.
that is something that I really like that you're pointing out that you really had to learn how to relax.
Yeah, and I'm still learning. Like I recently had a baby. So and I'm a single mom. And I realized that I was speeding to get to him and speeding a lot in my life, but like speeding mentally and speeding physically. I got a ticket and I was like, damn, I'm trying. I was like,
Right, right.
I'm always like, always in this rush, rush, rush. And I'm learning how to like, hey, like calm down because that's all I did in the business. I was work and rush and like get ready and like build a business. It was like such a rush. So learning
Yeah.
how to like slow down and like relax. And I often like find like quotes that rewire, and I think I have it on my phone, but it's literally talking about rest. Um, okay, it says this. It says stop glamorizing the grind and start glamorizing getting 7 hours of sleep at night, having healthy relationships, feeling safe at work, taking sick days, uh, being paid a living wage, working hard when you're at work, boundaries, and self-caring your way to success. Um,
Wow.
I see a lot of those quotes, and that is what I am now like embodying. I don't want to grind so hard anymore. You know what I mean? You can self-care your way to
Yeah.
success because I feel like you don't take care of yourself when I was building that business, especially mentally, mental health wise. And honestly, like, and I hope that my son, doesn't take this the wrong way, but when I was pregnant, and knowing that I was going to become a single mom, I resented it because of the business, because I'm like, damn. I'm gonna have to grind again and have to be on a strict schedule because I have this responsibility, and I feel like I gave all that energy to that business, and I feel like I barely have any left right now that this baby's gonna come. So I have a lot of resentment. Also, too, like there was this podcast that you recorded her, and she was like, I have a hard time like committing to things now. So do I. Like when I genuinely was good at school, like I graduated honors with honors, and I've always had a desire to go back, but then at the same time I'm like, nah, like I don't want to like grind, like cuz that fear.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then when you said that to me the first time we talked, that's the first time I'd ever heard somebody say something that like I didn't know how to express because I felt the same way. I was like, I really want to go back to school. But you're right. I don't want to exhaust myself the same way that I did and then end up being for nothing, you know? And even though I'm sure I'd have some sort of value from it, I just that fear will always be there. And then kind of going back to what you were saying too about the resentment, don't feel bad. I had, and this was before the business, but a little bit after too, because when I was pregnant with my first child, I knew I was going to be a single mom. Like, even though I was married to the guy, like, it was all shit show. And I had a lot of resentment. I was scared. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm 19 years old. This is not a good thing. I mean, obviously now it's all good. You know, my kid's 11. He's all good. But with my youngest child, it was the first time I'd ever done a pregnancy alone. It was the first time that I was like, this happened to me because these people in the business influenced me to make decisions. They influenced me to get back with my ex. Like, my child is a product of that abusive relationship. Like, I think it's okay to hold resentment because it's so unknown at that time. I mean, obviously everything changes when your baby's born, but like, it's emotional, it's traumatizing because what they did to you was horrible.
Yeah, it's just the grind part really was it was the most traumatizing for me because I just and I find it now bleeding through my work right now. Like I just even my the person that's training me with this new position, she's just like, I can see you have potential and that you can work hard, but I also see that you hold back. And I'm like, well, yeah. And she knows about this business. She knows what I was in. And she understands. And but she's actually really like healing me in a lot of ways. Like like it's okay to work hard in the company, and the thing is now as I'm getting a paycheck, right? So it's okay to work hard, you know.
Yeah, you're
Um,
actually getting paid this
yeah.
time.
So, and two, as I think in February, I was looking at my numbers and stuff, and I was like, you know what? I think I can afford a studio with my son. And that was the whole goal for me was go Eagle. And I cried to them at the table when I was telling them that I wanted to quit. Was because I told them like I told you, you told me that when I go Eagle that I can get an apartment, I can get my own home, because I never had one. It was so unstable growing up, and I cried to them, and like knowing that that promise wasn't gonna come, because I guess it just my ship wasn't that strong. I was so torn because I always just wanted my own place, and like moving around with all these people, living with people was so hard. So even there was even a Kate once where she was like, maybe it's you. I'm like, no, it's hard living
Wow,
with
sorry.
people. Yeah, that was another red flag. Yeah, and so like I just yeah, like I'm like knowing that I'm gonna get the studio upcoming in February, like I'm so pumped because it's just gonna be me and my son, and I don't want to
Yeah.
live with. I do not want to live with family, and I learned very quickly that I just can't live with my sister. I love her to death, but I just can't live with her. And just being able to have a knowing that I work right, I have a roof over my head because of the job.
Yeah.
It's gonna make me appreciate my job more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I mean, you've come so far. And I think we've talked about this before, but I think you're doing amazing. And I
Thanks.
think that the business, it sucked so much from you, like a lot of energy. And slowly but surely, your energy will come back. But then it goes away when you get close to 30. So I promise you'll have some. But no, for real, like I really do. It's a healing process. And I'm really excited for you to kind of enjoy, motherhood the way that you've always dreamed of motherhood to be, because, when you're raised with moms like ours, it's like it's hard, and I know that there are moments that are scary. It's like, oh my God, I just know I never want to be this way, but you are going to be such a great, I mean, you are already because you're not pregnant anymore. Like you have this child now,
Thank
but you're such a great mom already, having all these forethoughts. Like you're thinking about your child's future already a lot. Some people, like I know for me, I didn't have that. My mom was never like, I foresee this for you. It was never like that. So I think you're doing an amazing job. But I am so grateful that you've just been so willing to share this journey and be so vulnerable.
Yeah, no, I'm very open. Like I want people to hear all of it, because
Yeah.
I hope that, when they hear it, that they will relate and that they will get something from it. And I swear to God, thank you, Danny, for all that you're doing. Like when I started listening to those other podcasts you recorded, I was just like, oh my, it was like a relief. It was triggering, but it was a relief. um,
Feel that.
yeah, and but it was such a relief knowing that okay, I wasn't the only one, that
Yeah.
feels like they, wasted years of their life or wasted their 20s, like you'll give up your 20s for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, but I really do it for other people. We were all at some point, whether it's people who were in worldwide BWW or any of the Amway tools businesses, any other MLMs, cults, or even domestic violence relationships, like we were all suppressed at one point where we didn't have a voice. We were either scared or somebody was telling us that we couldn't say anything. And I really feel like it's so important that we are all able to share our stories. Because at the end of the day, why did we all join Worldwide? To share our story and help people. They
Yeah.
didn't let us do that. So that's where I
Mm.
want all of us to come together and be like, you can't do that, Worldwide. We are going to talk. We're going to speak our truth. And I'm sorry that it makes you look bad, but you guys suck. Like, in my humble opinion, what you guys do is traumatizing people. So if
It's
I
emotional
can,
abuse at the end of the day.
it is
So
1000%, it is emotional abuse.
you're giving us a voice,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And I
and
hope that it helps.
oh no, 100%. It's so I'm like, oh, finally, I get to let this out, you know,
Yeah,
and like when
totally.
yeah, like, and I don't want to be silenced anymore. Like, there's this song. It's the Aladdin. The girl. It's the
Yeah.
live one.
Jasmine,
Yeah, but the live one, the live,
I haven't seen that one.
and it's she's in Lemonade Mouth, but she plays Jasmine, and she has this song called Silence. Like, I'm not gonna be silenced anymore. And I think that's what you're doing for all of us. That we're not gonna shut up. We're gonna speak our truth. And I think when you come from background abuse, that's a huge deal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for your kind words, but I thank you for coming here and, like I said, being so vulnerable and sharing the story and, helping to inspire other people to share their story too. And I'm really grateful. Did you have any last and final thoughts for anybody who might be listening?
I got everything out that I needed to get out. I hope that I didn't leave any parts missing either, because that's what I was more afraid of. I didn't want to leave any parts so people that they can like relate to it or like, make it feel better. And but yeah, I just hope that whoever, if you're in business, make your own decision. Um, but if you're not in business, I hope that you heal from all of it. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again so much. If you guys want to be like Antonia and come and share your story, please DM me on Instagram at xsnt.podcast. You guys can find me on TikTok, YouTube at xsnt.podcast, and really anywhere you guys can find podcasts. So I'm really excited to see you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.